Hi everyone, Hoopsa here. Gareth Southgate has just announced his final pre-Euro 2024 provisional squad ahead of England's last friendlies against Bosnia and Herzegovina and Iceland next week. This preliminary selection gives us a good idea of who Southgate is having one final look at before narrowing his squad down to the 26-man requirement before UEFA's deadline of the 7th of June. So I thought I would take a look through the squad. I've only had a sneak peek and give you my reaction as I go through it. Do let me know your own thoughts on the provisional squad in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe as well. Right, so starting with our goalkeepers, we of course have got Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, Aaron Ramsdale and James Trafford. No huge surprises here other than James Trafford. He of course was dropped by Vincent Kompany for the last 10 games or so under Burnley, so he'll probably be an obvious candidate to be cut from that 33-man squad down to 26. But otherwise I think the three keepers that he has picked makes complete sense. Obviously you do have Nick Pope as well, but he missed a lot of the season. Only just came back for Newcastle's final game. Defenders, okay, so we've got Jared Branthwaite, really pleased to see him in there after the great season he's had with Everton. Lewis Dunk, that's a bit more of a surprise for me. I know that he was called up for our last couple of friendlies. He does immediately strike me as a player that maybe would be culled from the final squad, although he did go to the World Cup. Joe Gomez, again, I'm really pleased to see him in there. Offers us a lot of versatility across the back line, and with some of the potential injury issues that we've got at left back, he could come in and do a job there. Mark Gahey, again, pleased to see him there. Think he does offer us that similar flexibility of being able to play at left back too, and has obviously had a really good run under the new manager at Crystal Palace, who were of course unbeaten in their final 7 matches of the season and picked up 4 clean sheets in the process. Ezri Konsa, also very logical, made 35 appearances for Aston Villa this season in their 4th place finish. Of course had that experience playing in Europe as well, so could be really useful if called upon. Harry Maguire, he was always going to be in the squad. He is a trusted figure under Gareth Southgate, and to be honest, who else are you going to have as your starting centre-back? In my opinion, he's never really put a foot wrong for England on the big stage, so I can see why he's going to be there. I think United fans have started to work out that he wasn't really the biggest problem after all too. Jarell Quansah, a surprise to be honest for me to see him in there. I think he's had a good season. Obviously he's made 17 appearances for Liverpool, played 90 minutes in 5 of Liverpool's final 6 matches, and it is great to see a really youthful selection in defence. I do get the feeling this is maybe one of the names that would be cut from that final 26-man list, but I would prefer Southgate to opt to keep in some of these younger options rather than someone like Lewis Dunk. Luke Shaw is kind of a surprise, kind of not. Obviously he's been injured since February, which is not great because it's Southgate's clear choice for starting left back. But when the 23-man squad was expanded back to 26 players, Southgate did talk about the fact that he could potentially use that to carry some injured players who might not make the start of the tournament, who could be available for selection later on. He's done that with Harry Maguire in the past, so even if he doesn't feature in these next 2 friendlies, I would expect to still see his name in that final squad. John Stones, complete no-brainer on the back of a 4th successive Premier League title. Kieran Trippier makes a lot of sense. He did come in at left back for Luke Shaw in the last matches that England played. He did miss a lot of the last couple of months through injury, but he did return right at the end of the season for Newcastle. And despite missing such a large period of the season, he still ended with 10 assists and a goal. So definitely a good creative option to have in that back line. And then of course Kyle Walker for what I would imagine will probably be his last tournament for England. Now we do have a few more surprises from the midfielders onward. Trent Arnold has had his own battles with injury this season, but did play in the last 7 or 8 or so matches. He continues to be a midfielder in Gareth Southgate's eyes. Better to have him in there than not at all. Conor Gallagher, a very Gareth Southgate player in my opinion. We don't have a huge amount of depth in that sort of defensive centre mid role, so I can see why he's in there. He played all but 1 match for Chelsea in the Premier League this season, and they did end in very good form with 5 wins in a row. Curtis Jones made 23 appearances for Liverpool this season. I do see him as someone who would potentially drop out of the squad unless he really impresses over the next 2. Kobbie Mainoo, of course, was going to be in here. He forced his way into the England conversation in our last matches. He's featured in every single league game for Man United since the 17th of December. He looked very good against Belgium, and I'm expecting to see him on the plane. Declan Rice has of course gone from strength to strength with his move from West Ham to Arsenal. A very narrow 2nd place finish for Arsenal this season, and of course lots of Champions League experience under his belt now too, so that should just level him up on this international stage this summer. And the final midfield choice, a player I am very, very pleased to see in there, Adam Wharton. Obviously starting to pick up a lot of buzz since his January move to Crystal Palace. People are starting to notice what a steal that 18 million they paid to Blackburn really is. I'm really glad that Southgate has taken, in what would probably be his eyes, a gamble on Wharton. I would like to see him go that one step further and actually take him to the tournament. He's only 20 years old, but he looks to me a bit like Bellingham when he first came through for England, where he looks like he's played for far many more years. And speaking of Bellingham, he was always going to be in this squad. He is our most obvious choice. Very successful first season at Real Madrid with 2 trophies under his belt already, and potentially another before the tournament even begins. 20 goals and 10 assists for Jared Bowen this season. He had to be in there too. Somehow still seems to be one of those players that goes a little bit under the radar actually, but I definitely think we'll be seeing him on the plane as an option. And the player, of course, that I am most happy to see in this squad, Ebere Eze. 11 goals and 4 assists in 27 appearances for him this season. He has excelled under the new Crystal Palace manager. Potentially going to be looking at a big money move for him this summer, and that could definitely be advanced if he makes it onto that final plane to Germany. He was supposed to be in the squad for the last Euros, got injured on the final day of the season, so I'm so pleased to see that he is in the squad this time, and I really hope that he makes that final squad. Phil Foden's in there, of course he is, on the back of his 100th trophy at Man City at the age of just 23. Anthony Gordon's back in the squad after his senior debut against Brazil. 12 goals and 11 assists for him at Newcastle this season. He is a very, very good player. He is going to be battling out for a spot with Cole Palmer, I think, in that final 26-man squad. Jack Grealish, I think, is quite lucky to be in here. Not because I think he's a bad player or has had a bad season, but he has obviously been used as a more rotational option under Pep Guardiola. There is potentially talk that he might be on the move again this summer. I do wonder if he is one of those bigger names that could drop out of the squad, alongside some other very obvious omissions, which we'll cover in a minute. Harry Kane's in there. He is carrying a bad back injury at the moment, and it seemed that Bayern Munich were trying to play that down a little bit. I think he's had to go to Madrid for treatment on that. I could see a situation where he is missing at the start of the tournament. He does have just under a month to get fit and ready for it, but it might make for some interesting selections in those group games if he is not available. James Maddison, again, a player I think is quite lucky to be in this squad. Started the season very promisingly, just like Spurs. Got injured, petered out, and didn't really have many goal involvements towards the end of the season. I would personally probably not take him in the squad if it means that someone like Ebere Eze is taken. Cole Palmer, very happy to see him in there. Second top scorer in the Premier League, 22 goals, 11 assists, and an 100% penalty conversion rate, so that's always useful in an international tournament. Personally, even though I think they're both good, if it comes between Gordon or Palmer, it's Palmer all day for me. He's one of those creative players, you give him the ball, he will make something happen. I think he could even knock on the door for a starting place. That's how highly I rate him. But the starting place, of course, will go to Bukayo Saka. Another very strong season for Arsenal's star boy, despite not ending with the silverware that he would have hoped to. And the final 2 choices in this 33-man squad, Ivan Toney and Ollie Watkins. And really, you couldn't have 2 more different strikers, not only just based on their style of play, but also on the seasons they've had. Ivan Toney, of course, missed the majority of the season, serving his gambling ban. Scored 4 in 5 for Brentford on his return, and then has been goalless since February. Ollie Watkins, meanwhile, has absolutely excelled for Aston Villa this season. 27 goals and 13 assists. He has carved himself out, really, as Harry Kane's deputy. He is a very different striker to Harry Kane, and I wonder if that could influence how he's used in the tournament, but there is no chance that you don't take him. Now, that's the 33-man squad, so let's talk through the obvious omissions from this, starting with, of course, Jordan Henderson. Finally, Southgate has realised that it is time to remove Jordan Henderson from the squad. He was booed at Wembley last year following his move to the Saudi Pro League. Ajax's form nosedived on his arrival into the team. He then missed a load of games through injury, and then he only just came back at the end of the season. It's time for some fresh legs in that midfield, so well done, Gareth. Marcus Rashford is another obvious missing player. Things have just gone from bad to worse for him, really. He's not hit the scoring form that he did last season. His attitude has been all over the place. He missed 4 of the last 6 matches for United, and he was goalless in those final 9 games. This is a bold choice for Southgate. He does like going for his familiar players, so I'm really pleased to see that he is giving other players that option down that left wing. You've got Chilwell and James, both injured for the majority of the season for Chelsea, coming into the squad towards the end of the season. James, of course, ended with a red card against Bournemouth. Chilwell hadn't even been making it into the team. And then, of course, you've got Chelsea's Raheem Sterling, who is absent from an international tournament squad for England for the first time since 2012. He was coming into a little bit of form towards the end of the season, but this is absolutely the right choice. It's time to bring that next generation through down that left-hand side. As we said, Nick Pope, he was injured for over half of the season, only just returned at the end, so he couldn't really expect a place in this squad. Eric Dyer and Jadon Sancho both revived their seasons with loans out to Germany, and were coming into very, very good form. Southgate's never really been that keen on Sancho, so I'm not surprised to see that he's not come back in. There was talk that he might bring Eric Dyer in because of the defensive issues that we were having, but again, I think it's the right choice to keep him out. I think the player who can probably feel the most sorry for himself is Dominic Solanke. 19 goals and 3 assists for Bournemouth this season, but he is just slightly further back in the pecking order behind your Kane, Tony and Watkins. And then of course Ben White remains unavailable for selection. So that is the full 33-man squad. Over the next 2 weeks we're going to see this squad utilised in those final 2 friendlies before the tournament begins, and that should give us a much better idea of which 7 players Southgate is going to trim out of this squad for his final 26-man team. Who do you think deserves their place and who should get the cut? Is there anyone that you think that's been left out from this 33-man squad that should be kept in? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more Euros content and see my video when the final squad is announced, then don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers!